My parents called me the family disgrace at my sister's wedding. This story that seemed impossible actually happened to me. I was so shocked when it happened. Let me tell you about it. Come along with me as we begin. I stood in that ballroom, 300 guests staring at me in complete silence. My father had just announced to everyone that I was the embarrassment of the Harrington family. My mother sat there saying nothing. My sister would not even look at me. I wanted to disappear, but then my phone buzzed with one text message, and everything changed that night. Before we dive into the story, let me know where you are watching from today. Drop your location in the comments below. If stories about family redemption and finding your own path resonate with you, hit that like button and subscribe to join our community. Now let me take you back to where this all began. To understand what happened at that wedding, you need to know about my family. The Harringtons of Greenwich, Connecticut. My father, Theodore Harrington, is 67 years old and a senior partner at one of the most prestigious law firms in Manhattan. He helped found that firm 30 years ago, and he never lets anyone forget it. My mother, Constance, is 64. She was a professor of economics at Columbia University for 25 years before she retired. In our family, success has only one definition, and it involves degrees from Ivy League schools and titles that impress people at cocktail parties. Our house in Greenwich is like a museum of achievement. Every wall displays framed diplomas, awards, and certificates. The living room has my father's law degree from Harvard, prominently displayed above the fireplace. My mother's doctorate from Princeton hangs in the study. There are photographs of my parents shaking hands with senators, judges, and CEOs. Growing up in that house, I felt like I was living inside someone else's trophy case. Dinner conversations in our home were never casual. We did not talk about movies or sports or what happened at school that day. Instead, my father would discuss his latest court victory, explaining every legal strategy in exhaustive detail. My mother would share news about her latest published paper or the conference where she had been invited to speak. My sister Rosalind would report her grades, her internship offers, her plans for law school, and then everyone would look at me. I was different from the moment I could hold a crayon. While Rosalind practiced her debate skills and memorized case law for fun, I spent hours drawing. I remember being 8 years old, sitting on the back porch with a set of watercolors my grandmother had given me. I painted the oak tree in our backyard, trying to capture the way the afternoon light filtered through the leaves. I was so proud of that painting. When I showed it to my father, he barely glanced at it. He said, and I remember his exact words, "Art is a hobby, Marcus, not a career. Harringtons do not become painters. We become leaders." My mother was more subtle in her disapproval, but it was there. She would look at my drawings and sigh. She would say things like, "You have such potential, Marcus. Why do you waste your time with this?" She would compare me to Rosalind constantly. "Your sister made the honor roll again. Your sister got accepted to the summer law program at Yale. Your sister is going to accomplish great things." The implication was always clear. I was not. Rosalind and I are 4 years apart. She is younger, but she always seemed older somehow, more serious, more focused. She knew from the age of 12 that she wanted to be a lawyer like our father. She studied constantly, joined every academic club, built the perfect resume. Our parents adored her. She was everything they wanted in a child. I was the rough draft they wished they could erase. Despite the pressure, I tried to follow the path they laid out for me. I pushed down my love for art and enrolled in pre-law courses in college. I hated every minute of it, but I kept going because I did not know what else to do. I got into law school, not Yale or Harvard like my father wanted, but a decent school in Philadelphia. I thought maybe if I just kept pushing through, I would eventually feel like I belonged. I lasted 2 years. The first year was miserable but manageable. The second year, something broke inside me. I could not sleep. I could not eat. I would sit in class and feel like I was watching my life from outside my body. The pressure, the expectations, the constant feeling that I was failing at being myself, it all became too much. I was diagnosed with severe depression. My therapist told me I needed to make changes, or I would not survive. She did not mean that metaphorically. So I dropped out. I called my parents to tell them, and my father hung up on me. He did not speak to me for 2 years after that. My mother called me crying, telling me I had destroyed my future, that I had wasted all their investment in me, that I had broken her heart. Rosalind tried to be supportive at first, but she was busy with her own career. and our conversations became shorter and less frequent until they stopped altogether. I moved to Brooklyn with nothing but a suitcase and $300 in my bank account. I got a job at a furniture workshop sweeping floors and cleaning up sawdust. The owner was a man named Harold, 72 years old, who had been building furniture by hand for 50 years. He noticed me watching him work one day and asked if I wanted to learn. That was the beginning of everything. Harold became the mentor I never knew I needed. He taught me how to read the grain of wood, how to feel the material, and let it guide my hands. He showed me that craftsmanship was its own form of art, that creating something beautiful and functional with your hands was one of the most honest things a person could do. Under his guidance, I discovered a talent I did not know I had. I was good at this, really good. I spent years learning and perfecting my craft. I worked 12-hour days earning barely enough to pay rent on a tiny apartment in a rough neighborhood. But for the first time in my life, I felt like I was doing something that mattered to me. When I finished a piece of furniture, a table or a chair or a cabinet, I felt a sense of accomplishment that law school had never given me. I was building things with my hands, creating objects that would last for generations. That meant something. But my family did not see it that way. The few times I saw them at holidays, they treated me like I had a contagious disease. My father would shake his head and mutter about wasted potential. My mother would look at me with pity and suggest it was not too late to go back to law school. Aunts and uncles would ask what I was doing with my life, and when I told them I was a woodworker, they would pause, smile politely, and change the subject. In their world, working with your hands was something immigrants did, something people without education did. It was not something a Harrington did. 7 years passed. I built my skills, my reputation, and my small business. I was not rich, but I was surviving. More importantly, I was at peace with myself. I had stopped trying to earn my family's approval and focused on earning my own, or so I thought. Because then the wedding invitation arrived, and everything I had worked so hard to build inside myself was about to be tested. The invitation came in a thick cream-colored envelope with embossed gold lettering. Rosalind Elizabeth Harrington and Jonathan Edward Whitmore request the honor of your presence at their wedding. The ceremony would be held at the Riverside Country Club in Connecticut, the same club where my parents had been members for 30 years. 300 guests were expected. It would be the social event of the season for the Greenwich elite. I almost threw the invitation away. 7 years of being treated like a family embarrassment had taught me to keep my distance. But then I noticed a smaller piece of paper, tucked inside the envelope. It was a handwritten note from Rosalind. Her handwriting was still the same neat, careful script I remembered from when we were children, sharing notes about our parents' moods. Marcus, she wrote, I really want you there. Please come. It would mean everything to me. I know things have been difficult, but you are my brother. This day will not be complete without you. Please. I read that note at least 20 times. Rosalind and I had barely spoken in years, but once when we were young, we had been close. She used to sneak into my room when our parents were fighting, and we would build blanket forts together. She used to defend me when our father criticized my drawings. Somewhere along the way, as she became the golden child, and I became the disappointment, we lost that connection. But her note made me think maybe she missed it too. I decided to make something for her, not just any gift, but something that would show her who I had become. I chose a piece of black walnut I had been saving for a special project wood with the most beautiful grain I had ever seen. I designed a jewelry box large enough to hold all the treasures a bride might accumulate over a lifetime. The exterior would be smooth and elegant, but the lid would feature hand-carved flowers, roses and lilies intertwined. Inside, I would line it with deep red velvet. I worked on that box for 3 months. Every evening after my regular orders were done, I would stay late in the shop, carving and sanding and perfecting every detail. Harold watched me work and said it was the finest piece I had ever made. I poured everything into it, all my skill, all my hope, all my desperate wish to be seen as something other than a failure. A week before the wedding, my mother called. I was surprised to see her name on my phone. We had not spoken in almost 8 months. Her voice was stiff and formal, like she was reading from a script. Marcus, she said, I am calling about the wedding. I assume you received the invitation. I told her I had, and that I was planning to attend. She paused. Good. But I need to discuss some things with you. The dress code is formal. Please wear appropriate attire. Also, some of our relatives will be there, people who ask questions. I would appreciate it if you would be discreet about your current occupation. I felt my stomach tighten. What do you mean discreet? You know what I mean, she said. You do not need to volunteer information about dropping out of law school or working as she hesitated, manual laborer. I am a craftsman, Mom. I make furniture. It is nothing to be ashamed of, she sighed. I am not asking you to lie, Marcus. I am just asking you not to embarrass us. Can you do that? The conversation ended shortly after. I sat alone in my workshop, looking at the beautiful jewelry box I had made for my sister, and wondered if I should even bother going. But then I called Harold, and he said something that stuck with me. Family is complicated, son, but regret is worse than rejection. At least if you go, you will know you tried. So I rented a suit, the nicest one I could afford. I got my hair cut. I polished my shoes until they shone. On the morning of the wedding, I loaded the jewelry box into my truck wrapped in cloth to protect it, and I drove 4 hours from Brooklyn to Connecticut. The whole drive, I alternated between hope and dread. Maybe this would be the turning point. Maybe my family would see me differently. Maybe Rosalind's wedding would be a new beginning. I had no idea what was actually waiting for me. The Riverside Country Club looked like something from a fairy tale. White tents billowed on the manicured lawn. Thousands of white roses decorated every surface. Servers in crisp uniforms carried trays of champagne. Luxury cars lined the circular driveway, and valets in matching jackets hustled to park them. I pulled up in my 10-year-old pickup truck, and the valet looked at me like I had arrived on a donkey. I walked into the main building carrying the wrapped jewelry box, looking for a place to put gifts. The entrance hall was full of people in designer clothes, women in dresses that probably cost more than my monthly rent, men in suits that fit like they were born wearing them. I recognized a few faces, cousins I had not seen in years, friends of my parents who used to pat me on the head when I was a child. They looked at me now like they were trying to place my face. I spotted my mother near the registration table, directing guests with the efficiency of an air traffic controller. She wore a pale blue dress and pearls that had belonged to her mother. When she saw me, her expression flickered briefly, something between relief and anxiety. She walked over. Marcus, you came. I told you I would. She looked at my suit, assessing. That will do. Put the gift over there. She pointed to a table overflowing with wrapped packages. And please remember what we discussed. Before I could respond, she was gone, rushing off to greet more important guests. I stood there holding my carefully crafted gift, feeling like I had already been dismissed. But I reminded myself that I was here for Rosalind, not for my parents. I placed the jewelry box on the gift table, making sure it was positioned where she would see it. I wandered through the reception area looking for anyone who might actually want to talk to me. The first familiar face I encountered was my Aunt Patricia, my father's sister. She was a small woman with sharp eyes, who had always enjoyed gossip. Marcus, she said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. How unexpected to see you here. Rosalind invited me, I said. Of course she did. Patricia sipped her champagne. So tell me, what are you doing these days? Still doing that woodworking thing? I make furniture, I said. Custom pieces. Business is going well. She nodded slowly, her smile never reaching her eyes. How quaint. She leaned in closer. You know, your father still hopes you will come to your senses eventually. It is not too late to finish law school. I excused myself before I said something I would regret. Walking away, I nearly bumped into my Uncle Robert, Patricia's husband. He was holding a scotch and looked like he had already had several. Marcus, my boy, he said loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. Still building birdhouses. Are we furniture, actually? Tables, chairs, cabinets. He chuckled. Well, someone has to do it, I suppose. He clapped me on the shoulder with exaggerated friendliness. Not everyone can be a Harrington. I made my way to the outer edge of the crowd, found a quiet corner, and got myself a glass of water. I watched the other guests mingle and laugh. Watched my parents hold court with their wealthy friends. Watched distant relatives whisper behind their hands while glancing in my direction. I had been there less than an hour, and I already felt exhausted. Then I saw Rosalind. She came through a side door, still in the final stages of preparation, a hairdresser trailing behind her with a can of hairspray. Her wedding dress was stunning, all lace and silk, and tiny crystals that caught the light. She looked beautiful, but also stressed her eyes, scanning the room until they landed on me. Her face broke into a genuine smile, the first warm expression I had seen all day. Marcus, she said, rushing over, you came. I would not have missed it. She hugged me, really hugged me, not the stiff, formal embrace our family usually exchanged. "I am so glad you are here," she whispered. "This day has been insane." I guided her to a quiet corner where we could talk for a moment. I told her about the jewelry box, described how I had made it, explained that it was on the gift table. Her eyes filled with tears. "You made that. For me, I wanted to give you something special. Something that would last." She squeezed my hand. "Marcus, I have missed you. I know I have been a terrible sister. I got so caught up in work and pleasing mom and dad, and then planning this wedding, and I lost track of what matters." Before I could respond, our mother appeared. "Rosalind, the photographer, is waiting. We need family portraits now." She looked at me briefly. "Just immediate family first." Rosalind gave me an apologetic look as our mother led her away. I watched them go, watched my father join them along with Jonathan the groom. I watched a photographer arrange them in front of a flower-covered arch, snapping pictures of the perfect family. No one called me over. No one even looked my way. I stood alone 40 feet from my own family's portrait, as excluded as if I had not been invited at all. The ceremony itself was held in the garden, 300 white chairs arranged in perfect rows, facing a gazebo covered in roses. I found my seat, which was in the very last row, far from the family section at the front. An elderly woman next to me smiled kindly and asked if I was a friend of the bride or groom. When I said I was the bride's brother, her eyebrows rose in surprise. She said nothing more, but I saw her glance toward the front where my parents sat, then back at me, clearly wondering why I was seated so far away. The ceremony was beautiful. Rosalind walked down the aisle on our father's arm, looking radiant. Jonathan the groom wiped tears from his eyes when he saw her. The minister spoke about love and commitment. Vows were exchanged, rings were placed. The crowd applauded. I clapped along with everyone else, genuinely happy for my sister, even as I felt the familiar ache of not belonging. After the ceremony, photographers swarmed the wedding party for more pictures. I watched from a distance, not sure if I should approach. At one point, I heard my father telling the photographer that he wanted some shots with just the parents and the bride, the immediate family. His eyes swept over the crowd, but did not stop on me. I was not part of his immediate family anymore. I had been edited out of the picture a long time ago. The reception began as the sun started to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The ballroom was spectacular, with crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, and centerpieces overflowing with flowers. A live band played soft jazz as guests found their seats. I looked for my name card and found myself at a table near the back, sitting with distant relatives I barely knew and friends of Jonathan's family, who kept asking me how I knew the couple. "I am her brother," I said, for what felt like the 10th time. "Her older brother." "Oh, one woman," said, her face showing surprise. I did not know Rosalind had a brother. That stung more than any insult could have. My own sister's wedding, and half the guests did not even know I existed. Dinner was served, course after course of elegant food I barely tasted. I watched my parents at the head table laughing with Jonathan's parents, toasting with champagne, playing the role of proud parents perfectly. I watched Rosalind smile for cameras, dance with our father, embrace our mother. From where I sat, she looked happy. I tried to focus on that. I was here for her, not for me. Then the speeches began. The best man went first, telling funny stories about Jonathan's college days. The maid of honor followed, sharing memories of her friendship with Rosalind. There was laughter and applause and the clinking of glasses. I started to relax, thinking maybe the evening would pass without incident. Then my father stood up. Theodore Harrington commanded attention without trying. He was tall, silver-haired, and had the kind of presence that made people stop talking when he entered a room. He tapped his champagne glass with a fork, and the entire ballroom fell silent. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he began, his voice carrying easily across the room. "As the father of the bride, I have the privilege of saying a few words about my daughter and the remarkable woman she has become." He spoke about Rosalind's achievements, her grades, her law school success, her rapid rise at her firm. He talked about the Harrington family legacy, the generations of lawyers and scholars who had come before us. He praised Jonathan's family, noting that his father was a federal judge and his grandfather had served in the Senate. The two families were a perfect match, he said, a union of excellence. Then his tone changed. "Of course," he said, his eyes finding me in the crowd, "not everyone in our family has lived up to the standards we hold dear." I felt my blood turn cold. "My son Marcus is here tonight." He paused and I could see him savoring the moment. Some of you may not know Marcus. He chose a different path. He dropped out of law school, you see, to pursue a career as a carpenter. Laughter rippled through parts of the room. I sat frozen, unable to move. My father continued. We Harringtons have always believed in education achievement and contributing to society in meaningful ways. Unfortunately, Marcus decided that building furniture was more important than building a career. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. He is what we might call the family disgrace, the one who chose to embarrass us rather than join us. The ballroom went absolutely silent. 300 pairs of eyes turned to look at me. I saw shock on some faces, amusement on others, pity on a few. My Aunt Patricia was smiling behind her hand. My Uncle Robert nodded like my father had stated an obvious truth. I looked at my mother. She sat motionless, staring at her champagne glass, saying nothing. I looked at Rosalind. She had gone pale. Her eyes were wide, but she did not speak. She did not defend me. She just sat there. My father raised his glass. To Rosalind and Jonathan, he said, his voice bright again. May your marriage be as successful as everything else you have accomplished. Guests raised their glasses uncertainly, murmuring congratulations. I stood up. My legs felt like they were made of wood. I walked out of the ballroom without looking at anyone. I heard whispers behind me, but I did not care. I just needed to get out. I needed to breathe. I made it to the parking lot before I realized I was shaking. My hands trembled so badly that I dropped my car keys twice before I could unlock the door. I sat in my truck in the darkness, and I cried. For the first time in years, I let myself feel everything I had been holding back. The rejection, the humiliation, the knowledge that my own father had publicly declared me worthless in front of 300 people. I sat there for maybe 20 minutes, trying to decide what to do. I could just leave. Drive back to Brooklyn, cut off my family completely, never see any of them again. That would be the smart thing to do, the self-protective thing. Then my phone buzzed. I looked at the screen. It was a text message from a number I did not recognize. Marcus, this is Eleanor Whitmore, Jonathan's grandmother. I saw what happened in there. Please do not leave. I need to speak with you. Meet me at the garden terrace in 10 minutes. I have something important to tell you. I stared at the message confused. Jonathan's grandmother, I had never met her. I did not even know she existed. Why would she want to talk to me? I almost ignored the message. But something made me curious. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was the fact that she was the first person all night who seemed to care that I had just been humiliated. Whatever it was, I wiped my face, took a deep breath, and got out of the truck. The garden terrace was behind the main building, a quiet space overlooking a small lake. String lights twinkled in the trees, and the sound of the reception was muffled by distance. An elderly woman sat on a stone bench, her white hair gleaming in the soft light. She wore an elegant navy blue dress and pearls, and when she saw me approach, she smiled. "Marcus," she said, "thank you for coming." I sat down beside her, not sure what to expect. "How do you know my name? I know quite a lot about you, actually." She studied my face with intelligent, penetrating eyes. "I am Eleanor Whitmore. Before I retired, I was a professor at the Rhode Island School of Design. I taught art and furniture design for 40 years. I blinked. "Furniture design," she nodded. "I have spent my life around craftsmen and artists. I know quality when I see it. And I have seen your work." My work. Eleanor reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. She scrolled through some photos and showed me the screen. 6 months ago, I was visiting a gallery in Brooklyn. They had a collection of handmade furniture on display. This table caught my eye. I looked at the photo. It was a dining table I had made last year, 8 feet long, crafted from reclaimed oak with hand-carved legs. "I bought it," Eleanor said. "It sits in my dining room now. Every time I have guests, they ask about it. They want to know who made it. The craftsmanship, the attention to detail, the way you worked with the natural grain of the wood." She put her phone away. "It is extraordinary work, Marcus. It is art." I did not know what to say. No one in my family had ever described my work that way. No one had ever even seemed interested. Eleanor continued. "When Jonathan told me his future wife had a brother who was a furniture maker, I was curious. I looked you up. I visited your website, saw more of your pieces. Then I asked around the design community about you. Do you know what people said?" I shook my head. "They said you were one of the most talented young craftsmen in New York. They said your work has a quality that is rare these days, a soul to it. They said you are an artist working in wood. I felt tears threatening again, but different tears this time. Why are you telling me this? Eleanor's expression grew serious. Because I was in that ballroom tonight. I heard what your father said, and I want you to know that he is wrong. What you do matters. The world needs people who can create beautiful things with their hands. My own husband was a furniture maker. His family looked down on him his whole life. When he died, his pieces were acquired by the Smithsonian. She paused. Your father measures worth by titles and prestige. That is a very narrow way to see the world. We sat in silence for a moment. The music from the reception drifted faintly across the garden. Eleanor spoke again. I am on the board of the American Craft Foundation. Every year we host a major exhibition featuring exceptional artisans from around the country. It is held in Manhattan, and collectors' museum curators and critics attend from all over. She handed me a business card. I want to nominate you for next year's exhibition. Your work deserves to be seen by people who will appreciate it. She looked at me intently. Do not let your father define you, Marcus. Do not let him steal your worth. You have a gift. Use it. I held the business card like it was made of gold. I did not trust my voice, so I just nodded. Eleanor stood up, straightening her dress. Now, she said, are you going to leave and let your father win? Or are you going to walk back into that reception and show him that you are not ashamed of who you are? I looked toward the ballroom where lights glowed through the windows. An hour ago, I had wanted nothing more than to escape. But something had shifted. Eleanor's words, her belief in me, her simple recognition that my work had value, it changed something. I do not know if I can face them, I admitted. You can, she said. The question is whether you will. I walked back into the reception. The speeches had ended and dancing had begun. Couples swayed on the dance floor, while others stood in clusters, drinking and chatting. A few people noticed my return, their eyes widening in surprise. I ignored them. I was looking for Rosalind. I found her near the bar, standing alone while Jonathan talked with a group of his law school friends. She saw me coming, and her face crumpled. Marcus, she said, reaching for my hand. I am so sorry. I should have said something. I should have stopped him. I just froze. I was so shocked, and then everyone was looking, and I did not know what to do. Her tears were real. I could see the shame in her eyes, the genuine remorse. Why, I asked her quietly, did you let him treat me like that? She shook her head. I have been asking myself that for years. Why do I let him control everything? Why do I keep trying to be perfect for them? She looked at me with something like envy. You were brave enough to walk away, Marcus. I never was. I am 30 years old, and I still care more about their approval than my own happiness. What do you mean? Rosalind glanced around to make sure no one was listening. I hate my job. I hate being a lawyer. I wanted to be a photographer. I dreamed about it for years, but I was too scared to tell them. She laughed bitterly. You dropped out and followed your passion. I stayed and followed their script. And look at us now. You have built something real. I have a partnership at a firm I despise. I did not know what to say. My little sister, the golden child, the family success story, was telling me she envied my life. Your wedding gift, I said. The jewelry box. I made it for you. Her eyes filled with fresh tears. I saw it. Jonathan's grandmother pointed it out to me. Marcus, it is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. She gripped my hands. I am sorry I have been such a terrible sister. I am sorry I disappeared. I was jealous of you, I think. Jealous that you had the courage I did not have. Jonathan appeared beside us, looking concerned. Is everything okay? Rosalind nodded. Jonathan, you know what your grandmother told me about Marcus's work. Jonathan turned to me with a look of genuine respect. She showed me pictures of his furniture. She has been talking about the dining table for months. He extended his hand. Marcus, I want you to know that what your father did was wrong. Completely wrong. And as far as I am concerned, you are family. Real family. I shook his hand, surprised by the strength of his grip and the sincerity in his voice. My grandmother is right about you, Jonathan said. Your work is incredible. I actually have a commission for you if you are interested. Our new house needs a kitchen table. I want something special, something made by hand. Would you consider it? I could hardly believe what I was hearing. Yes, I managed to say. I would be honored. A commotion near the entrance caught our attention. My father was walking toward us, his face flushed from champagne and annoyance. Behind him, my mother followed, wringing her hands. What is going on here? My father demanded. Marcus, what are you still doing here? Haven't you caused enough disruption? I straightened my spine. Something had changed in me. Maybe it was Eleanor's words. Maybe it was Rosalind's confession. Maybe it was finally understanding that the problem had never been me. It had always been him. No, father, I said, my voice steady. The only disruption tonight has been you. His eyes widened. Excuse me. You stood up in front of 300 people and called your own son a disgrace. You used your daughter's wedding to humiliate me. Do you have any idea how cruel that was? I was simply stating facts, he sputtered. You dropped out of law school. You work with your hands like a common laborer. You have wasted every opportunity we gave you. I felt my anger rising, but I kept it controlled. A common laborer, I make furniture that people pay thousands of dollars for. I create things that will last for generations. And tonight, I learned that my work is going to be featured in a national design exhibition at the American Craft Foundation. My father's face went blank. What are you talking about, Eleanor Whitmore? Jonathan's grandmother is on the board. She has been collecting my work. She thinks I have talent. She thinks my work matters. I stepped closer to him. I spent my whole life trying to be what you wanted. I almost destroyed myself trying to fit into your definition of success. But I am done. I am not a disgrace. I am a craftsman. I am an artist. And I do not need your approval anymore. The people around us had gone quiet. My mother was staring at me like she had never seen me before. I have wasted 34 years trying to earn your respect, I continued. Trying to be someone I was never meant to be. That ends tonight. You can keep your legacy and your titles and your definitions of success. I have something better. I have a life I actually want to live. I turned to Rosalind and Jonathan. Thank you for having me here tonight. I mean that. Then I looked back at my father. Goodbye, father. I walked away. Behind me, I heard Rosalind telling my father that he should be ashamed of himself. I heard Jonathan's voice firm and disapproving. I heard my mother calling my name, but I did not stop. I walked out of that ballroom with my head high, and for the first time in my life, I was not running away from my family. I was walking toward myself. The drive back to Brooklyn that night took 4 hours, but it felt like I was traveling through time. The person who left that parking lot was not the same person who had arrived that morning. Something fundamental had shifted. For years, I had carried my family's rejection like a weight around my neck. That night, I finally set it down. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into my work. I called Eleanor Whitmore, and she was true to her word. She began the process of nominating me for the Craft Foundation exhibition. She introduced me to gallery owners, collectors, and other craftsmen. For the first time, I was part of a community that valued what I did. Harold, my mentor, watched all of this happen with quiet satisfaction. You always had the talent, he told me one evening as we worked side by side in the shop. You just needed someone besides me to recognize it. I spent 6 months preparing for the exhibition. I created a collection of 12 pieces, the finest work I had ever done. A dining table made from reclaimed barnwood, a rocking chair with hand-carved details on every surface, a writing desk with hidden compartments and drawers. Each piece represented years of learning and growth. Each piece was a testament to the path I had chosen. Rosalind called me regularly during those months. Our relationship transformed after the wedding. She told me she had started taking photography classes in secret, pursuing the dream she had buried for so many years. Jonathan supported her completely, and I could hear the happiness in her voice when she talked about it. We had found each other again, two siblings who had been divided by their parents' expectations, now united by their own choices. The exhibition opened on a cold November evening at a prestigious gallery in Manhattan. Critics came. Collectors came. Museum curators examined my work with careful eyes. And when I walked through the gallery, seeing my creations displayed on pedestals and spotlighted like the art they were, I felt something I had never felt before. Pride without shame, joy without conditions. Eleanor introduced me to everyone as one of the most exciting young craftsmen in the country. People asked for my card. They discussed commissions. A writer from a major design magazine asked if she could profile me for their spring issue. And then near the end of the evening, Rosalind arrived with Jonathan. She carried a bouquet of flowers and wore an enormous smile. She hugged me so hard I could barely breathe. "Marcus," she said, looking around at the gallery, "this is incredible. I am so proud of you." Behind her, I noticed 2 more figures entering the gallery, my mother and my father. I tensed, preparing for another confrontation. But something was different. My mother walked slowly toward me, her eyes moving from piece to piece, taking in my work. My father followed, his expression unreadable. My mother stopped in front of the writing desk. She ran her fingers along the smooth wood, traced the intricate carving on the drawer handles. When she turned to look at me, there were tears in her eyes. "Marcus," she said softly. I had no idea. I did not know how to respond. I had imagined this moment so many times, my parents finally seeing my work, finally understanding. But I had never imagined it would actually happen. My father cleared his throat. He looked uncomfortable, out of his element. "The Whitmore woman," he said gruffly. "She invited us. Constance thought we should come." He paused, looking at a cabinet I had made from cherry wood. His mouth worked like he was trying to say something difficult. Maybe, he said slowly, maybe I was wrong about some things. It was not an apology. It was not acknowledgement of the pain he had caused. But from Theodore Harrington, it was revolutionary. He had never admitted to being wrong about anything in his entire life. I looked at my mother. She reached out and touched my arm. "I saw the article," she said, "the one in the design magazine. I showed it to everyone at my book club." She gave a small, hesitant smile. "I told them my son made furniture." It was such a simple thing. My son made furniture. But it was the first time she had ever acknowledged my work without embarrassment or qualification. I did not embrace them. The wounds were too fresh, the history too complicated. But I nodded. "Thank you for coming," I said. We would never be a normal family. The scars my father had inflicted would take years to heal, if they ever healed at all. But standing in that gallery, surrounded by the work of my own hands, I realized something important. I did not need them to heal. I had already healed myself. Sometimes I think about the night at Rosalind's wedding. My father standing at the microphone, calling me a disgrace in front of 300 people. The silence of the crowd. The weight of humiliation. For so long I thought that moment defined me. The family failure. The Harrington who did not measure up. But that night was not my ending. It was my beginning. It was the night I stopped living for someone else's approval and started living for my own. Eleanor's text message arrived at the exact moment I needed it. A stranger reached out to a broken man in a parking lot and showed him his own worth. Sometimes that is all it takes. One person who sees you. One moment of recognition. One text that changes everything. I still make furniture in my Brooklyn workshop. I still work with my hands, still spend hours sanding and carving and perfecting each piece. But I do it now with a different understanding. My work is not a failure to become something else. It is a success at becoming myself. My father called me a disgrace, but a stranger saw an artist. Sometimes family is not about blood. It is about who shows up when you need them most. And sometimes all it takes is one text message to remind you that your worth was never theirs to define. If you have ever felt like the black sheep of your family, if you have ever been told that your dreams were not good enough, if you have ever been made to feel ashamed of who you are, I want you to know something. You are enough. Your path is valid. And somewhere out there, there are people who will see your worth, even if the people closest to you cannot. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been misjudged by your own family? Have you ever had to choose between their expectations and your own happiness? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and I would love to hear what you have experienced. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find stories like this one. And if you have not already, subscribed to the channel so you do not miss future stories about real people overcoming real challenges. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Maybe someone in your life is struggling with family expectations right now. Maybe they need to know they are not alone. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for listening. And remember, you get to decide what success means for you. No one else gets to write your definition. Until next time, take care of yourselves. You are worthy of love and respect exactly as you are. Be well, my friends.